If you've ever watched one of Joe Rogan's podcasts and you're into kettlebells, you've probably seen this video. And I was even told that Joe Rogan really hurt his shoulders. So in this video, I want to break down the problem of this exercise and show you what you can do instead. Grüezi miteinander, Gregory von Leberstark here. If you're new here, this YouTube channel is about all things kettlebell. This is not to bash Joe Rogan. I really enjoy his podcast and he's a serious martial artist. And of course, I want to avoid any contact with his shotgun kicks. I was coached by IKFF founder and kettlebell legend Steve Cotter, and he told me the story about how Joe Rogan probably seriously hurt his shoulder during this exercise. So let's watch Joe Rogan's kettlebell bit where Aubrey Marcus from Onnit is standing next to him, probably thinking like, what the?
Like I'm about to do battle. I get my head in place, and I go.
Oh. So
that's 144 pounds going up.
Guys, this is not supposed to be funny, but I don't understand why Aubrey standing next to him is not telling him, Joe, stop it, man. Let's do it with correct form. His face, it's unbelievable. So let's break this down into pieces. I love the warrior mentality mode that really pushes you to your limit. However, you gotta be careful. When you go into this warrior mode, always make sure that you're equipped with the right technique. Don't go into all-out warfare not knowing the proper technique and in the end, injuring yourself because you're choosing too much weight, you're into and then you destroy your shoulder joints. So Joe is probably aiming to do alternating kettlebell cleans. Kettlebell cleans are a great exercise for your core, your back, your chest, and your rotator cuff. The shoulder is the most mobile and at the same time, the least stable joint that we have. That's why it makes sense to treat shoulder training with the utmost care. Your rotator cuff muscles essentially stabilize the shoulder joint. They keep the humerus firmly locked in the scapula. Whenever you do a kettlebell clean, you work your rotator cuff muscles. They're doing some serious stabilizing whenever the kettlebell lands in the rack position. You can even involve more muscle mass when you rotate your wrist and your elbow when you enter the backswing phase of the lift. All in all, it's a great kettlebell exercise. However, in Joe Rogan's case, there are 5 problems that I'm going to highlight. Number 1, if you're going for doubles, don't alternate between left and right, but instead do them together. Double cleans are a fundamental kettlebell exercise, and it's even one of the most essential parts of the long cycle. This is one of the foundations of kettlebell training. Double cleans almost work and stabilize the entire body. It's a great exercise and it requires a lot of skill. For example, knowing how to stand firm in the rest position, knowing how to overlap the kettlebells, putting them together, knowing where to place the elbows, knowing how to place your hips, knowing how to go back into the amortization phase, going to the backswing, etc. Number 2, use lighter weights, especially if you didn't develop the technique yet. The good boy or kettlebell sport style is like the ballet of kettlebell training. It takes some serious skill and effort to learn it. You can even see some serious OGs and legendary coaches like Denis Vasilev, for example. On one of his Instagram posts, he's mentioning like he is working on his overhead fixation technique. This dude is a 7-time world kettlebell champion, and he's talking about how he has to develop the skill to improve his technique. Crazy, this dude is 7-time world champion. Can you imagine this? This goes to show that, of course, he's very humble, but at the same time, kettlebell training takes a lot of skill and a lot of patience to develop. Number 3, if you go heavy and you're alternating, you got a recipe for injury. Essentially, you grip it and rip it. Every time this heavy bell lands in the rack position, your shoulder joint is banging around violently. This leads to a possible injury in the wrist joint if you don't know how to do a hand insertion. It leads to a possible injury in the shoulder joint because you keep banging this heavy bell up and down. And it probably leads to inflammation of the rotator cuff muscles and the ligaments and the tendons attached to it. Number 4, if Joe didn't do a proper warm-up before this demonstration, he got a recipe for disaster. Because the shoulder lacks stability, it is so incredibly important to tread carefully when it comes to shoulder training. One of the ways to keep injury away from yourself is to do a proper warm-up. In Joe Rogan's kettlebell video, however, it seems like he didn't have a proper warm-up prior to this demonstration. If you're cold, going heavy, doing a dangerous exercise on a delicate joint, you've messed up. Number 5, alternating cleans with heavy kettlebells leads to an incorrect technique. Like most kettlebell exercises, the clean is working on your core, your lower back, and your hip muscles, among other muscle groups, of course. If you use a very heavy kettlebell, then you grip it and rip it. So essentially, you're pulling the weight with the arms. If you're pulling and ripping these heavy kettlebells with your arms, then you're not utilizing leg drive or neither your core. Essentially, you're doing the exercise wrong, and this ultimately can be very bad, to say the least. So the moral of the story, if you choose to do this exercise, do a proper warm-up, do double cleans, don't alternate between left and right. Like and subscribe to this YouTube channel if you've enjoyed this piece of content.